The voicemail came at 4:12 a.m. on a Thursday in early November. I know the exact time because I'd been lying awake in my one-bedroom apartment in Denver, staring at the ceiling, doing what I'd done every night for the past 3 years, wondering if my son still remembered my face. The voice on the message was calm, clinical, the way only someone trained to deliver terrible news can sound. "Miss Calloway, this is Dr. Priya Nair from Children's Hospital, Colorado. I'm calling regarding your son, Lucas Calloway Martin. He was admitted to our emergency department this evening with acute kidney failure. His creatinine level is 8.4 milligrams per deciliter. Normal for a 7-year-old is 0.3 to 0.7. He needs an emergency kidney transplant. We need you here as soon as possible for compatibility testing. Please call me back immediately." I played the message 3 times. Each time the words hit harder. My son. The boy I hadn't been allowed to see, to hold, to kiss goodnight for 1,096 days. The boy my ex-husband Derek had taken from me using a custody ruling built on lies I couldn't afford to fight. Lucas was dying, and a hospital was calling me because Derek couldn't save him alone. I was already pulling on my coat before the message finished playing a 3rd time. Children's Hospital Colorado was 20 minutes from my apartment. I made it in 11. "I'm so grateful you chose to spend this time with me. Your support truly matters. This narrative includes fictionalized elements designed for educational value. Any overlap with actual names or settings is purely accidental. But the wisdom I'm sharing, that's for you. Now, I'm curious. Where in the world are you? Comment your country or city below. Let's build this community together." Dr. Nair met me at the reception desk on the 5th floor. She was a small woman, maybe mid-40s, with sharp brown eyes and silver streaks in her dark hair. She shook my hand with a firm grip. "Miss Calloway, thank you for coming so quickly. Where is he? Can I see him?" "In a moment. First, I need to explain what's happening." She led me to a consultation room and closed the door. Lucas was brought in at 1 a.m. by his father. He'd been vomiting blood for several hours. His blood pressure was dangerously high. 150/95 for a child his age. We'd expect around 100/60. His kidneys are failing. Both of them. "Both kidneys?" My voice sounded far away. "We ran imaging and found severe bilateral renal damage consistent with prolonged untreated nephrotic syndrome. This condition doesn't develop overnight, Miss Calloway. Lucas has likely been symptomatic for months. Swollen ankles, foamy urine, fatigue. These are warning signs any pediatrician would have caught." "Months?" My hands were shaking. Derek had a pediatrician. The court required it. Dr. Nair's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "I can't speak to your ex-husband's decisions. What I can tell you is that Lucas needs a living kidney donor. We'll test you, his father, and check the National Registry, but a biological parent is our best chance for a match." "Does Derek know I'm here?" "Not yet. He left around 3 a.m. to handle something at home. He should return within the hour. Less than 60 minutes before I'd face the man who had stolen 3 years of my son's life." "Take me to Lucas," I said. She led me through a hallway painted with mountains and bears, cheerful murals hiding the reality of what happened behind each door. "Room 508. She stopped. "He's sedated," Dr. Nair said softly. "And Miss Calloway, he may not recognize you. 3 years is an eternity for a child." I pushed the door open. Lucas lay in the hospital bed hooked to a dialysis machine, tubes snaking from both arms. He looked nothing like the 4-year-old I'd last held. He was bigger, of course, but also wrong. His face was puffy, swollen with fluid his kidneys couldn't process. His skin had a grayish tint, dark circles carved shadows under his eyes. But his hair was still mine, that deep auburn, and his chin had the same stubborn set. His eyes fluttered open. Confusion, fear. "Who are you?" he whispered. My heart cracked clean in half. "My name is Megan," I said, moving slowly toward the chair beside his bed. "I'm here to help you feel better." Lucas stared at me for a long, terrible moment. Then, so quietly the machines almost drowned it out. "Mom?" I couldn't hold the tears. "Yeah, baby, it's me. Daddy said you moved far away because you didn't love me anymore." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip every machine off the wall and hunt Derek down and make him answer for every lie. Instead, I sat beside my son and took his swollen hand in mine. I never left you, Lucas. I tried to come back every single day. Before he could answer, the door opened. Derek stood in the doorway. 3 years had not been kind to him. At 38, he looked 50 hollowed cheeks, bloodshot eyes, a suit that hung on him like it belonged to someone bigger. But his jaw was the same, set hard, the jaw of a man who believed he was always right. "What the hell are you doing here?" he said. "Lucas needs a kidney," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The hospital called me because I'm a potential donor." "You have a restraining order. You're not supposed to be within 300 feet of my son." "Our son," I corrected. "And Colorado law allows biological parents access to their children in life-threatening medical emergencies. Dr. Nair can explain." Derek's eyes narrowed, but before he could argue, Dr. Nair stepped in behind him. "Mr. Martin, Miss Calloway is correct. Under state statute, her presence is both legal and medically necessary. We need to test all potential donors immediately. Lucas doesn't have time for legal arguments." Derek's jaw worked. "Then, fine, test us. But when this is over, she leaves, and she doesn't come back." Dr. Nair's voice turned cold. "Mr. Martin, I'd suggest you focus on saving your son's life rather than making threats. If you attempt to use Lucas's medical condition to manipulate custody arrangements, I will report you to Child Protective Services. Am I clear?" Derek said nothing. But his eyes, locked on mine, were full of a cold fury I remembered too well. The blood draws took 15 minutes. Then came the waiting. I sat in the hospital cafeteria, unable to eat, unable to think about anything except the little boy upstairs who'd asked if I was his mother. My phone buzzed. A text from my boss at the design firm. "Client presentation is at 9 a.m. You coming?" I didn't respond. At 6 p.m., Dr. Nair called us back. Derek arrived with a woman I didn't recognize, younger than me, maybe 25, blonde, wearing too much perfume for a hospital. He didn't introduce her. "Doctor." Nair ignored her entirely and looked at me, then Derek. "I have the preliminary results. Mr. Martin, you are not a compatible donor. Your tissue type doesn't match Lucas's HLA profile." Derek's face went white. "What about her, Miss Calloway? You are a 3 out of 6 HLA match with Lucas. That's consistent with a parent-child relationship and compatible for transplant." Relief flooded through me so fast I almost collapsed. "But, Doctor," Nair continued, and the word hung in the air like a blade, "there's an anomaly in the genetic crossmatch that I need to investigate further. The markers don't align the way I'd expect for a biological father." She looked at Derek. "Mr. Martin, I'll need to run a comprehensive DNA panel overnight." Derek's face shifted confusion, then something darker, suspicion. He turned to me. "What did you do, Megan?" I didn't answer, because suddenly my mind was somewhere else entirely. A night 4 years before Lucas was born. A conference in Aspen. A man named Ryan Torres who'd made me laugh for the first time in months while Derek was home screaming at me over the phone about money. Dr. Nair dismissed us. I stayed. "Dr. Nair," I said when Derek was gone. "What aren't you telling me?" She closed the door. "The DNA results will be ready by morning. But based on the preliminary markers, I can tell you this much: Derek Martin is not Lucas's biological father." The floor dropped out from under me. That wasn't possible. Derek and I were married when I conceived Lucas. We were trying. Except we'd also been fighting. Every day. Screaming matches that shook the walls. And then that weekend in Aspen, the one I'd buried so deep, I'd almost convinced myself it never happened. Ryan Torres. The software engineer from Austin who'd been at the same conference. We'd talked for hours, drunk too much wine, ended up in his hotel room. I'd gone back to Derek on Monday and never spoken to Ryan again. 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. I'd assumed the timing pointed to Derek. I'd never considered otherwise. "I know who the father might be," I whispered. Dr. Nair nodded. "We need to contact him. If he's Lucas's biological father, he's our best chance at a compatible donor. Can you reach him?" "I haven't spoken to him in 8 years, Miss Calloway. Lucas's kidney function is declining rapidly. We have days, not weeks. I need that man in this hospital." I called Ryan Torres at 10 p.m. from the hospital chapel. He answered on the second ring. "Megan, is that you?" Ryan, I need your help. I have a 7-year-old son. He has kidney failure. He needs a transplant. I took a breath. And there's a chance, a real chance, that you're his biological father. The silence lasted so long, I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. I'll be on the first flight to Denver, he said. Tell me which hospital. Ryan arrived at 8 a.m. the next morning. He looked almost exactly as I remembered. Tall, dark eyes, steady hands, the kind of calm that made you feel like the world wasn't ending, even when it was. Tell me everything, he said. So I did. The failed marriage, the custody battle, Derek's lies, the restraining order, 3 years without my son. Ryan listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, let's do the test. By 4 p.m., Dr. Nair had the results. Ryan, you are a 5 out of 6 HLA match with Lucas. The DNA confirms it. You are his biological father. You're compatible for transplant. Ryan looked at me. Can I meet him? That evening, I brought Ryan to Lucas's room. Lucas was awake, propped up against pillows, his face still swollen but his eyes alert. Lucas, this is Ryan. He's going to help you get better. Ryan knelt beside the bed. Hey, buddy, I hear you're pretty tough. Lucas studied him with those serious dark eyes. Are you a doctor? No, I'm just someone who wants to help. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then, okay, but will it hurt? A little bit for me, Ryan said. Not at all for you. They'll put you to sleep, and when you wake up, you'll start feeling a whole lot better. Promise? Promise. I left them talking and found Dr. Nair in the hallway. There's something else, she said, and her expression made my stomach clench. When we admitted Lucas, we ran a full panel. His blood work shows chronic malnutrition, low albumin, zinc deficiency, anemia. His growth is in the 3rd percentile for his age, and his kidneys, this level of damage, suggests his nephrotic syndrome went untreated for at least 6 to 8 months, possibly longer. 6 months? My voice broke. He has a pediatrician. Lucas's medical records show he hasn't seen a doctor in 19 months. His last appointment was canceled by his father and never rescheduled. I couldn't breathe. Derek had let our son's kidneys destroy themselves because he couldn't be bothered to take him to the doctor. There's more, Dr. Nair said quietly. During Lucas's intake, the nurses documented unusual scarring on his arms and back. Linear marks consistent with being struck with a narrow object. A belt, possibly. I've already contacted Child Protective Services. The transplant was scheduled for Monday. Ryan signed the consent forms Friday afternoon without hesitation. He's my son, he said. Even if I just found out yesterday, he's my son, and I'm not going to let him down. Saturday morning, things nearly fell apart. Lucas's blood pressure spiked to 170 over 110. Alarms screamed. Dr. Nair and her team stabilized him with IV medication. But the message was clear: we were running out of time. Monday, at 7 a.m., Ryan was wheeled into surgery. Before they took him, he squeezed my hand. I've got him, Megan. I won't let him down. The transplant took 4 hours. I sat in the surgical waiting room with my sister Jenna, who'd flown in from Chicago the night before. She didn't say much. She just held my hand and kept my coffee cup full. At 11 a.m., Dr. Nair emerged. The surgery went perfectly. Ryan's kidney is functioning in Lucas's body. He's in recovery now. We'll monitor him closely, but the early signs are excellent. That afternoon, CPS investigator Maria Santos arrived. She was thorough, methodical, and kind. She interviewed Lucas separately in a child-friendly room while I waited in the hallway, watching the clock crawl. When she emerged an hour later, her face was carefully composed, but I saw something in her eyes that looked like controlled fury. Miss Calloway, based on Lucas's statements and the medical evidence, I'm making a finding of severe child neglect and physical abuse. Lucas described a household where he was punished for asking about you, denied meals when he misbehaved, and struck with a belt when he cried. He also described being locked in a closet for extended periods. My body went cold. He told me his father said you didn't love him because he was bad. He's internalized that. He believes he deserved everything that happened to him. I couldn't speak, Maria continued. I'm filing an emergency report with the court today. I'm recommending immediate removal from Mr. Martin's custody and emergency placement with you. 2 days later, While I was sitting with Lucas watching cartoons on the hospital TV, my phone rang. Patricia Okonkwo, a family law attorney my sister had found. "Miss Calloway, I've been reviewing your custody file. The 2021 ruling that gave your ex-husband sole custody was based on a psychological evaluation by Dr. James Whitfield." "I remember," I said bitterly. "That report ruined my life. Dr. Whitfield had his license suspended by the Colorado Medical Board in 2020, a full year before he wrote your evaluation. Professional misconduct and insurance fraud. His reports carry no legal weight. The document your ex used to take Lucas is worthless." The room tilted. "Nobody checked? Your public defender didn't have the resources, and your ex-husband's attorney buried it in paperwork." "But I checked. And I have the suspension order, the disciplinary records and bank records showing your ex-husband paid Dr. Whitfield $30,000 to write that evaluation." The next week was chaos and revelation. Patricia's investigator, a retired detective named Carl Reeves, traced Derek's finances. What he found made me sick. Derek had created an online fundraiser 8 months ago called Save Lucas Fund, claiming Lucas had been diagnosed with a rare kidney condition and needed expensive treatment. The campaign raised $340,000 from 1,800 donors. Of that, $140,000 went to the hospital. The remaining $200,000 vanished, routed through a shell company called Martin Consulting Group into an offshore account in the Bahamas. Derek had been stealing money meant to save our son's life while simultaneously refusing to take him to a doctor. But Carl wasn't done. He found something else in the box of records. Derek's ex-girlfriend, the blonde from the hospital, her name was Tiffany, delivered to Patricia's office after she fled their apartment. Medical records from 2019, 2 years before Lucas was born. Derek Martin. Diagnosis: azoospermia, complete absence of sperm. Natural conception probability: 0. Derek had known before we were even married that he couldn't father children. He'd known the entire time that Lucas wasn't biologically his. He'd married me anyway, watched me get pregnant, claimed Lucas as his own not out of love, but out of control. And there was more on the hard drive Tiffany brought. Deleted browser history from the months before our wedding. How to isolate a partner from their family. Signs your wife is cheating. How to use it as leverage. Custody strategies for fathers, how to win sole custody. He'd planned everything: the marriage, the isolation, the custody battle. I was never his wife. I was his project. Patricia held a press conference. I stood beside her, shaking, as she laid it all out: the fraudulent psychological evaluation, the embezzled charity funds, the fake medical invoices, the evidence of premeditated manipulation. The story exploded. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets. The hashtag trended. Donors who'd given to the Save Lucas Fund flooded social media with fury. Derek's law firm placed him on immediate leave. The FBI opened an investigation. Special Agent Torres, no relation to Ryan, sat across from me for 3 hours, taking notes in a leather-bound journal. "Miss Calloway, based on the evidence, we're charging Mr. Martin with wire fraud, money laundering, and charity fraud. Federal offenses carrying 10 to 20 years. And the abuse? The state is handling those charges separately: child endangerment, custodial interference, assault of a minor. Combined with the federal charges, he's looking at 25 to 30 years. Derek's attorney tried one last move. He filed an emergency motion arguing that since Derek wasn't Lucas's biological father, the original custody order was obtained under false pretenses by me. He claimed I'd committed paternity fraud. Patricia demolished it in court. "Your Honor, my client didn't know. She had no reason to suspect. Meanwhile, Mr. Martin knew he was infertile before the marriage and deliberately concealed it. He isn't the victim of fraud. He is the fraud." The custody hearing lasted 2 days. Dr. Nair testified about Lucas's untreated kidney disease. Maria Santos presented the CPS findings. Carl Reeves walked the judge through $200,000 in stolen charity money. Dr. Rebecca Hartwell, a child psychologist, testified that Lucas exhibited signs of complex trauma hypervigilance, food hoarding, night terrors, and a deep-seated belief that he was fundamentally unlovable. Derek took the stand via video from county jail. His attorney asked if he loved his son. "Of course I do," Derek said. "He's my whole world." Patricia stood. Mr. Martin Lucas was admitted to Children's Hospital weighing 42 pounds. Average weight for a 7-year-old is 50 to 55 pounds. His kidneys were destroyed by a treatable condition you ignored for over 6 months. You hadn't taken him to a doctor in 19 months. During that time, you raised $340,000 in his name and stole $200,000 of it. You knew you were infertile before you married his mother. You paid a disgraced psychiatrist $30,000 to fabricate a report that separated a mother from her child. She paused. Is that what love looks like to you, Mr. Martin? Derek said nothing. Judge Catherine Monroe delivered her ruling the next morning. This court finds that Derek Martin poses a clear and present danger to the physical and psychological well-being of Lucas Calloway Martin. Full legal and physical custody is awarded to Megan Calloway. Mr. Martin is barred from all contact with the child until he has completed his prison sentence, undergone 2 years of verified therapeutic intervention, and received approval from a court-appointed psychologist. Additionally, Lucas himself must consent to contact when he reaches the age of 14. I sobbed. My sister grabbed my hand. Behind me, my mother, who I hadn't spoken to in 4 years, who had told me to stay with Derek, who had called me dramatic when I begged for help, wept into her hands. Derek was sentenced in federal court 3 weeks later. Wire fraud, money laundering, charity fraud, child endangerment, assault of a minor, custodial interference, and perjury. 22 years. The judge looked at him and said, "You stole from people who were trying to save a child's life. A child you claim to love. I have no sympathy for you." 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of our new apartment in Denver, mine, Lucas's, and for now, my sister Jenna's. Lucas was at the table doing homework, his color back to normal, his cheeks full, his eyes bright. His new kidney was functioning perfectly. Dr. Nair said his prognosis was excellent. Ryan came by every other weekend. He never pushed, never demanded a title. He took Lucas to Rockies games and taught him to code simple video games on his laptop. One Saturday, Lucas looked up from the computer and said, "Ryan, can I call you Dad sometimes?" Ryan's eyes filled. "Only if you want to, buddy." Lucas grinned. "Cool, but I'm still going to call you Ryan when you're being annoying." Ryan laughed so hard he cried. My mother called every Sunday. We were rebuilding, slowly. She'd said the hardest words of her life the day after the sentencing. "I chose him over you. I told you to stay. I told you that you were the problem. I will carry that guilt until the day I die." I didn't know if I could forgive her yet, but she showed up. Every Sunday call, every monthly visit, every birthday card addressed to Lucas in her careful handwriting. She was trying. That counted for something. My firm, Calloway Design Studio, landed a contract worth $800,000 3 months after the trial. Ryan offered a business loan through a trust Patricia set up, clean, legal, no strings. We hired 6 new people. We were building something real. Lucas still had nightmares sometimes. He still flinched when someone raised their voice. He still hid granola bars under his pillow, a habit from years of not knowing when his next meal would come. But he was in therapy with Dr. Hartwell, who said he was making remarkable progress. One evening, Lucas came into the kitchen while I was cooking dinner. "Mom? Yeah, baby? Is it true that families don't have to be the same blood to be real?" I turned off the stove and knelt beside him. "Where'd you hear that?" Ryan told me. He said, "Family is the people who show up." I pulled him into my arms. Ryan's right. Family is the people who show up, and we've got a whole bunch of people who showed up for you. Lucas hugged me tight. "I'm glad you showed up, Mom." I never stopped trying to show up, Lucas. Not for one single day. Derek sent a letter from prison last month. He said he was in therapy. He said he was sorry. He asked if Lucas might write back someday. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe when Lucas is 18, he can decide for himself. But not today. Today, we were free. I used to think family meant blood. I used to think that shared DNA was the thing that bound people together, that made them loyal, that made them show up when it mattered. Derek taught me otherwise. He shared nothing with Lucas, no blood, no genetics, no biological connection, and he still claimed ownership over a child he was destroying. Ryan shared everything with Lucas, and didn't even know he existed until a hospital called a stranger in the middle of the night. Family is not who you're born to. Family is who fights for you. Family is a kidney donor who flies across the country for a child he just learned was his. Family is a sister who shows up with bad hospital coffee and doesn't leave for 2 weeks. Family is a mother who calls every Sunday, even though her daughter hasn't fully forgiven her yet. Family is a 7-year-old boy who hides granola bars under his pillow, but is slowly learning that the people around him will never let him go hungry again. If you're watching this, and you see yourself in any part of this story, the isolation, the manipulation, the lies that make you question your own reality, please know that the truth always surfaces, sometimes painfully late, sometimes through a crisis you never saw coming. But it surfaces. Don't stay silent. Don't let anyone tell you that love requires you to shrink. Document everything. Trust the people who show up, not the ones who promise. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever fought for someone you love against impossible odds? Tell me in the comments. Your story might be the thing that gives someone else the courage to fight. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Her Silent Revenge and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for staying with me until the end.